Last week, Sister Talia asked the question, what is the basis on which we take the decision that there are some things that are not in the right place, or that are not in the right in their sequential place in our studies in Revelation. For example, we say that this chapter comes before this one, even though God puts it at this place. How can we be so bold as to make such a statement? So I promised that this week I would take a closer look at that. And what I want to do, I want to show as clearly as I can, biblically, why I believe we have to take that position. We have to, and why it makes sense when you understand what God is saying, why it makes absolute sense that it actually is should be moved from where it is in order to understand. All right? If that sounds a little confusing, when we go to actually looking at it, you will see it's a little easier to follow what I'm trying to say. So this is for the benefit of everybody, but especially because Sister Talia asked the question. Sister Talia, if there's anything that is not clear to you, or if there's any biblical reason or any reason you think that you can't agree, we would like to hear. All right? So don't be shy. I know you're not shy. All right. Don't be reluctant to say, I think that this was wrong because of this and this. All right? So anyway, give me a chance, first of all, to explain, which is what I want to do now. So I'm going to go ahead and share my my screen, and I'd like, okay. So I'm going to start by looking at the 7 seals. Now, I think if we go to the Bible, if we actually look at the Bible, it will take a bit of reading. I'm going to assume that all of us are familiar with what is written in the book of Revelation. Maybe that's a big assumption, but I'm going to make that assumption. Now, when you go to Revelation, you will find that in chapter 6, it shows the opening of the 7 seals. Now, before I go any further, Brother Warren, are you able to see the text on the screen very clearly? Are you able to see? All right, good. All right, so on the screen I have the 7 seals, and I'm using a different software because of what I want to do. So the 7 seals are, most of them are in Revelation chapter 6. So they are as follows. Jesus opened the first seal, and he saw, and a white horse came out. Revelation 6. Jesus opened the second seal, and a red horse came out. He opened the third, and there was a black horse that came out. He opened the fourth, and there was a pale horse that came out. So far, everything is okay. Everything is in sequence and is in the proper order. He opened seal number 5, and what I have here is that the judgment begins. Can somebody just remind me? Can somebody just remind me why we say that this is the judgment? Anybody? Anybody who has been sitting in our Revelation study for these many weeks, why do we say that seal number 5 is the judgment?
Because it's the judgment of the kingdoms.
Yes, but what exactly about about the 5th seal, why we identify that this is the beginning of the judgment?
Dead souls were under the altar.
Because we saw the souls under the altar, and what happened to them?
The judgment of Ancient of Days.
Given white robes.
They were given white robes. They were given white robes, and that is what we said. You can only be given white robes if you're a dead person. The only thing that this can mean is that the dead person's life is justified. The records show that this person was a righteous person, so he's given a white robe. That's what it means. And so this is the thing that makes us know that seal number 5 is the judgment. All right? But Jimmy, if it's on the same topic, yes. If it's something else, hold on.
Yeah, it's on the same topic.
Yes.
And the soul that was under the altar, they was calling for the judgment too.
Right, they were asking for vengeance, right? So, but that was, they were told to wait. But the thing that makes us know that this is actually portraying the judgment is the fact that they are given white robes. Yeah, that can only happen in the judgment. So that's why I have seal number 5 as the judgment. Now, seal number 6 I have as wrath arrives. Now, to get us involved, at least in this part, can somebody remind me what happens when the 6th seal is opened? Tell me two things.
Probation is closed.
Probation is closed, but what does John actually see?
The
Sun and
plagues.
moon darkened.
I beg your pardon?
Is it the sun and moon darkened?
The sun and the moon darkened. Yes, the sun and the moon is darkened. There's a great earthquake. The stars fall. The heavens depart as a scroll, and every mountain and island is moved out of its place. So we know it is the day of God's wrath because this is what they say. The great day of God's wrath has come, and who shall be able to stand? So we know that seal number 6 is the arrival of God's wrath. One other person, can you tell me what is the wrath of God? What is the wrath of God?
The 7 last plagues.
Thank you, Brother Tony. The 7 last plagues. And we know because in Revelation 15, it tells you that in the 7 plagues there is filled up the wrath of God. And in case there's anybody who, it says in Revelation 15 verse 1, I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God. So that's seal number 6. Let's look at that again. Go back to chapter 6 and you see seal number 6. When he had opened the 6th seal, there was a great earthquake. The sun became black as sackcloth of hair. The moon became as blood. The stars of heaven fell onto the earth, and so on. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together. Every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the last thing that is said, it says that the great men ran to the rocks and the mountains, and they said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come. And who shall be able to stand? So the Bible itself tells us that seal number 6 marks the beginning of the great day of God's wrath. So I'm emphasizing this because I want us to understand that this is a sequence of the seals. White horse, red horse, black horse, pale horse. And these are what John is seeing. Seal number 5, the judgment arrives. Seal number 6, the great day of God's wrath has come. As we have seen, the great day of God's wrath is referring to the 7 last plagues. Now, after the 7 last plagues, what we expect next is the coming of Jesus, right? So if number 6 is God's wrath arrives, the plagues arrive, then why is it that when you come to the next chapter, all of this that we are looking at is chapter 6. Then you go to chapter 7. Let me bring the Bible again. All of this is chapter 6, the 7 seals. The Lamb opened one of the seals and it goes right down, chapter 6 down to seal number 6. Then you go to the next chapter, which is chapter 7, and what do you see? You see the sealing of the 144,000. Do not hurt the earth, neither the sea nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. So the next thing that happens is that John sees the 144,000 being sealed. So the question is, and I'm specially asking you to consider this, Sister Talia, how can the 144,000 be sealed after the wrath of God? After the plagues or during the plagues? How can the 144,000 be sealed? And then as you continue to look at what is happening, you see that the next thing that happens, you go to chapter 8, and there is silence in heaven. What is this? So you see all the 7 seals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The only thing that is out of place is the 144,000. Let us see what seal number 7 is before we come back to the 144,000. Seal number 7, what happens with seal number 7? First of all, there's silence in heaven. Then the next thing that John sees is that the 7 angels are given 7 trumpets. I'll go to the Bible in a moment and just look to make sure that we have that right. And then after that, the angel throws down the censer. And the throwing down of the censer, I think everybody agrees. If you don't, I'll be surprised, but you could tell me. The throwing down of the censer represents the end of grace. So we have this, the sealing of the 144,000. It doesn't appear to be in the right place. How can you have the 144,000 being sealed after the day of God's wrath arrived? So it seems clear that the 144,000, the sealing of the 144,000 is in the wrong place. The sealing of the 144,000 should take place during the time of the judgment. This is where it should be. Now, this is the question. Why would it, if this is where it should be during the time of the judgment and not after God's wrath has arrived, why is it that God puts it down here? Why is it that in Revelation, in the book of Revelation, it is put all the way down here, seemingly after the plagues begin? Why? So that is a question. Okay. So I'm going to look at this question and respond to it. But first of all, this is the reason why in this case I am saying that 144,000 is the chapter itself is out of place. And I'll explain why God put it there. I'm going to explain why God put it there. But I first of all need to know that we can agree that it is in the wrong place. So if you look at the sequence again, seal number 6 tells you that the great day of God's wrath has arrived. All right? So this seal number 6, marks the end point. Nobody is going to be saved after that. Nobody is going to be saved after seal number 6. The heavens depart as a scroll, and the great men and so on run to the rocks. So the 144,000 being sealed, I mean, it must be obvious that they're in the wrong place. You can't be sealed after the great day of God's wrath has arrived. At that time, everything is settled. And you know that this is a fact, because when you go down to seal number 7, all that happens is that there is silence in heaven. And the angels are given 7 trumpets. And the censer is cast down. The casting down of the censer is the same thing that corresponds to the arrival of the day of God's wrath, right? God's wrath arrives at number 6 and number 7. You're going to see the wrath of God now. Number 7. You know you're going to see the wrath of God because the censer is thrown down. All right? The vessel of mercy is thrown down. There's no more any ministration in heaven. Jesus represents this angel with the censer because he's the one who offers up incense before God, the righteousness of Christ, the prayers of the saints. When the censer is cast down, it means that there is no more ministry of mercy. It's over. So, why does God put the 144,000 at that spot? That's the question. So it's no longer a question, are they out of place? I think, let me pause a little. If anybody believes that they are not out of place, if you don't understand what I just said, let me pause so you can make the point. I want to hear if you don't understand. And if you don't agree, I want to know why you disagree. Because
Brother David,
yes,
Brother
Sister
David,
Talia. Yes, Sister Talia.
blessings, Brother David. I
Yes.
appreciate your analysis of the subject. I don't, if I stated that I didn't agree that the 144,000 wouldn't be sealed or would be sealed after the plague, that's not what my question was about. But I will continue listening
All right.
to what you have to say and
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
I know, Sister Talia, and I know you never raised the question about the seals. I know the question came up about the trumpets. The reason why I'm dealing with the seals is because I'm trying to show that the same exact thing happens with the seals. So if we can understand that it happened with the seals, it helps us to understand why it happened with the trumpets, because it's the same principle. So that's why I'm starting with the seals, because I am pretty confident that you will agree with the seals. So I know you didn't bring this up as an issue, but I start with the seals because I know you will agree with this one. And so it helps me when we go to the trumpets, because you already see the principle. So just to reinforce the idea, what we are saying is that the 144,000 is out of place. It actually should be under seal number 5. It should actually be under seal number 5, which is before the great day of God's wrath comes, right? So the question, why did God put it here? Why did God put it after number 6? And if you go to the Bible, you can see it is there, because we just looked at it. Chapter 6 says, the great day of his wrath has come, and who shall be able to stand? But this is the point. This is the way God does things. The question is, he asks the question and then he gives the answer. This is why the sealing of the 144,000 comes, because if you look at all of the seals, look, when seal number 5 is opened, there are the souls under the altar crying for vengeance, right? And then you come to the seal number 6 now, and there's this great earthquake, and the sun becomes black, and the moon like blood, and so on. The stars of heaven fall, the heaven departs like a scroll. Every mountain and island is moved out of its place, and everybody is running for the rocks. In fact, it says, the rich men, the chief captains, the kings of the earth, the great men, the mighty men, every bondman, every free man hides himself. And the question at the end is the reason. The question they say is, the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Why is that question there? Remember, these are not people talking. This is vision. This is a vision. God puts the vision, and God puts these words in the mouth of the people. John is seeing a vision. There are not actual human beings who are saying this. It's a vision. So God puts the words in the mouth of these people in the vision, because God wants a question so he can give the answer. Everybody will be wondering, who will be able to stand in that great day? Like the Adventist song says, how shall we stand in that great day? Although it's talking about something else. But the question is there, will anybody be fit to stand in that day when God's wrath comes upon the world? And that is God's cue. So at this point, God shows us the sealing of the 144,000. It's not that it is taking place at this time. It must have taken place before. That's very obvious. It must have taken place before. But God shows it at this point because God is trying to answer the question, who is going to be able to stand in that day? This chapter is an encouragement to God's people who will live in that terrific time, terrible time, when the wrath of God comes upon the earth. We will see that there are some people who will not be defeated by that time, who will not be subject to these horrific disasters when the wrath of God comes. So God puts the chapter at this spot. God puts the chapter at this spot, down in between 6 and 7, after number 6, because he wants to be able to answer the question when the question comes. He shows us the wrath, and then he shows us who will stand. But we are to understand that this sealing must have taken place before that wrath arrived. So actually the 144,000 belongs at the time of the judgment. And that is where I believe all of us understand that we are. We are at the time of the judgment, even though there are several other things that are to happen under the judgment before the wrath of God arrives. All right, now, since we can understand this and we basically are in agreement on this, I'm going to go now to the trumpets because the principle is basically the same. So the trumpets.
David, if I can, just a thought on that too. I'm trying to, align the parallels. How are you today, by the way? I'm trying to align the parallels here of that happened in the days of Noah, and how you had the sealing of the remnant, if you like, and the judgment that was made back then. So if you look at it like that and what you're putting across here, it marries nicely.
Right, very similar to the sequence of how things happen in the days of Noah, in the days of the flood. I mean, what is important here is that God gives us the narrative in a certain sequence. The sequence that God gives us is not the actual sequence in how these things occur. The 144,000 is actually sealed before sealing. So the sequence that we have in Revelation, the 144,000 is out of place. But that is what I'm trying to explain here now, and I hope everybody understands. The point I'm making is that sometimes God gives us the story, and something is out of place. But we are taken back in time, because God wants us to understand, why did this happen? How did it happen? What was the build up to this? So he takes us back to something that happened previously, and he shows us at that spot. So yeah, that's the point I'm really trying to make in going through this. Now, the 7 trumpets. And again, I'm not going to go through the verses step by step in the Bible. We have been through that the last couple of weeks. So the 7 trumpets, the sequence is the first trumpet, there's hail and fire mingled with blood which fall upon the earth, and the earth is hurt. The second trumpet, the sea is hurt. There's a great mountain burning with fire which falls into the sea, and 1/3 of the ships and the creatures in the sea die, and so on. And by the way, I believe, and I've been teaching, that these 7 trumpets represent the same thing as the 7 plagues, all right? That's what I've been teaching. And I'm assuming everybody who is in the study this evening is understanding that and is agreeing with that. Why do I say this? Because look at what happens. Here is the outstanding reason. First of all, the 6th seal over on the left here, seal number 6, told us that God's wrath has arrived. So we are looking to see what is that wrath. Seal number 7 is open and there's silence. And then the angels, the same 7 angels, are given 7 trumpets. Now the angels are given trumpets, then the censer is thrown down. Why is this important? Let me actually look at the Bible and show you why this is important. In Revelation chapter 8, let me clear my screen a little bit. All right, so look. It says, he opens the 7th seal and there's silence in heaven about half an hour. Then he sees 7 angels who stand before God and they are given 7 trumpets. Now, whatever these trumpets are, this is not something new that is starting over. Why am I saying this? Because most people who study Daniel and Revelation, and I'm meaning particularly those who come from a Seventh-day Adventist background, most people believe that at this point, God stops. Verse 1, God stops. 7 seals come to an end and God stops. And now he starts over with the 7 trumpets. The 7 trumpets is God starting over history. That's what they believe. So they believe that these 7 trumpets represent events that took place in history from way back in AD 200, 300, in those early centuries of Christianity. That's what they believe. So they think the 7 seals stop with number 7. With number 7, he opens the 7th seal and there's silence in heaven. And they say there's silence in heaven because Jesus has left heaven with all the angels and he's coming back to earth. So in verse 2, they start over. They say it's a different prophetic sequence now that begins in verse 2. And they say chapter 8 should have really started with verse 2. That's how they do it. Now, I'm explaining this because I want you to understand that what I'm saying is something different, and I want to explain why I'm saying it. Now, look at verse 3. This is what is the critical evidence. After you see the 7 angels which stand with the 7 trumpets, then another angel comes and he stands there and he offers up much incense. Now, the only time I can find in the Bible when much incense was offered was on the Day of Atonement. That's the only time I can find in the Bible anywhere apart from here. It happened on the Day of Atonement. All right? So, anyway, the next thing that happens is that the angel took the censer and filled it with fire and cast it into the earth. What does this mean? Well, the only thing that I can understand this to mean, if anybody sees any other meaning, I would appreciate hearing it. But when you take the censer is a vessel of mercy. It was always a vessel where the prayers, where incense was offered, and Revelation tells you it was offered with the prayers of God's people. It's a vessel of mercy. It's a vessel of intercession. Now, when the angel takes this censer that has, for the past 2,000 years, it has been a vessel that brings blessing to God's people. But what he does now, he throws it down. He throws it down, and I don't know what anybody else believes, but I've always understood that this means that it is the end of the ministry of Christ. Christ is no longer offering up incense, offering up prayers. Christ is no longer ministering on behalf of people anymore. His ministry is over. And it is after this now that the 7 angels begin to blow their trumpets. And I'm showing you the sequence because I want you to see that this has to be after the end of probation. Okay? The 7 angels stand up and they are given trumpets. Then the angel comes and offers this last incense, and then he throws down the censer. Then the angels begin to blow. So this is one of the strong reasons why you can see that these angels have to do with after the end of probation. This is not talking about history from way down in AD 100 coming right down. This is not history from across the ages. There are, like I say, Adventism holds to that idea. They go back into history and they talk about how the Muslims invaded Europe, Attila the Hun, Genseric the Barbarian, and they talk about the Ottoman Empire and all of that. They put it back in history. Somebody's unmuted. Somebody wants to say something? All right, please mute if you're unmuted. So I want to make sure that you all understand what is being said. So what I'm actually doing is going against the teaching of Adventism, the accepted teaching of Adventism. What I am saying is going against this, okay? So I want you to understand, so I'm not dragging you into something blindly. I want you to understand precisely what I'm saying and why I'm saying it. The 7 trumpets, in my understanding, are after the close of probation, after Christ throws down the censer. I don't think you can read the context and decide differently. You can't read the context and put it way back 2,000 years in the past, coming down through the dark ages. You have to really lift the trumpets completely out of the context. So anyway, I think everybody can understand. I don't understand what I'm trying to say, and I'm trying to give you the reasoning behind it. Now, trumpet number 2, the sea is hurt. Trumpet number 3, the rivers are hurt. There's a great burning star that falls upon the rivers and the fountains of waters, and their waters become bitter. And the name of the star is wormwood. Now, I just wanted to notice something. Notice that the earth is hurt, and the sea is hurt, and the rivers are hurt. And that's another thing that makes us know that this is after the close of probation. Let me just show you quickly why I say this. If you go to Revelation 7 again, where it shows the sealing of the 144,000, look at what it says. There are 4 angels holding the 4 winds of the earth, that they should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on the trees. And the angel that comes from the east with the seal, he says, do not hurt the earth, nor the sea, nor the trees, until we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. So now that we go to the trumpets and we see the earth and the sea and the trees being hurt, we know that this must be after the sealing of God's people. So I hope everybody can see the reasoning why we conclude that these trumpets are after the close of probation. They're after Christ's ministry has stopped. Trumpet number 4. All right, I need to drag this out a little bit. The heavenly bodies are hurt, right? The trumpet number 4, 1/3 of the sun, 1/3 of the moon, 1/3 of the stars are smitten, so that the day and the night do not shine for a third. Trumpet number 5, the bottomless pit is opened, and there come out these horrific locust-like creatures upon the earth. Trumpet number 6, the 4 angels which are tied up in the river Euphrates, they are released, and there are a great number of people who are killed by some kind of war that breaks out. So all of this, remember, is after the ministry of Christ has come to an end. So I'm saying that all of these have to do with the time of the plagues. Now, this is why you come to the next thing. Trumpet number 6 is in, all of these are in chapters 8 and 9. Chapters 8 and 9. Revelation chapter 8 talks about the first 4 trumpets. Chapter 9 about next trumpet, or next 2. So at the end of chapter 9, what do you expect to see next? Well, at the end of chapter 9, you're expecting to see trumpet number 7. That's what you're looking for, trumpet number 7. Instead of that, you see something different. What do you see? You see an angel coming down from heaven with a little book. That's chapter 10 now. An angel comes down with a little book that is open. And you see John is given a command to measure the temple. And you see 2 witnesses are given power, and they go out to testify. All of this is in Revelation 10 and a part of Revelation 11. Then at the end of chapter 11, you see trumpet number 7, which says the mystery is finished. Now the question is, if we are really looking at these trumpets, and these trumpets are really the 7 last plagues, and that's what I've tried to show. I don't know if my evidence has been convincing for everybody, but I think there's very strong evidence. I don't know how this evidence can be overthrown. I think the evidence is very strong that the 7 trumpets come after the end of probation, after the ministry of Christ comes to an end. So the question is, how can these events take place in the middle of the 7 plagues, in the middle of the trumpets? How can the little book be opened? Because we understand that the opening of the little book is the book of Daniel. And the measurement of the temple, we understand to be the judgment. And the witnesses testifying, we understand to be the final preaching work, while the 144,000 are being sealed. So why are they put at this place? So in actual fact, these events, these three events, let me highlight them here. These events actually, let me see if I can do a better job than that. All right, these events don't actually belong here. There is actually no gap between the trumpets. God put them there in the sequence of Revelation. That's where they are. So the question we are going to ask is, why did God put them there? Just like we did with the 144,000, we are going to see if there's a reason why God put them at that place. And we will see, just like with the 144,000, there is a reason. Let me kind of move this a little bit out of the way, because I want to make sure that I have these three events in the right place. So in actual fact, you know where I'm going to put these events? Let me make a little space here. These events actually belong during the time of the seals. This is where they actually belong. They belong over here. And I'll explain. I think if you have been following me, most of you will understand why I put them there. But we're going to pay a little attention to it anyway and see if we can talk about it together. So the seven trumpets over on the right here, the seven trumpets actually, there's no gap between them. After number 6, when it says that the angels were loosed, it follows with number 7 immediately. These events, these three events, they do not belong at that place, but God put them there for a reason. And that's what I was really trying to say, Sister Talia. God put them over here for a reason. And the question is why? And that's what I want to just repeat this week. Why did God put them there? So, I don't know if my text, is my text still visible to everybody? Can somebody tell me? Just unmute and say yes.
Yes.
All right. I know it's a little small if you're watching from the phone. But these three events are the ones that were over here at this spot. And I've moved them and I put them over in the seals. Now, as long as you understand exactly what I'm saying, we're going to actually go to the Bible now and explain why I did this. But one thing you can all know, the opening of the little book is the book of Daniel. And that had to happen before probation ends, right? The measuring of the temple is the judgment. And see, we have the judgment over here in the 7 seals. So the temple being measured is the same as seal number 5, right? It happens under seal number 5. And the witnesses testifying, that is the ministry of the 144,000 as it is being made up. So all of this happens under seal number 5. That's why we say these actually belong at this spot. So the one question we have to find out is, why did God put them over here? And now let's go to the Bible and see if we can figure out why God put them there. Now, in chapter 11, I see you, Jimmy. I'm coming to you shortly. In chapter 11, there's a statement that makes us know that there's no gap between the trumpets. There's no gap. If you look at Revelation 11 and verse 14. It says, the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh. And it doesn't just say the third woe is coming, it says the third woe is coming quickly. What is the second woe? The second woe is trumpet number 6. Trumpet number 6 is the second woe. Trumpet number 5 is the first woe. And trumpet number 7 is the third woe. All right, God calls these three woes for whatever reason. Maybe they are more terrible than all the others. But the trumpet number 5 is the first woe. Trumpet number 2 is the second woe. And trumpet number 3 is the third woe. So look at what God says. God says, the second woe is past. That's trumpet number 6. And behold, the third woe, that's trumpet number 7, cometh quickly. Why did God put the word quickly in there? He doesn't say it about any of the trumpets. But why does he say quickly? Because he wants us to know that there's no gap between number 2 and number 3. There's no gap. Maybe there was a gap between 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 6 and 7. No, not 6 and 7, not 6 and 7. There's no gap between 6 and 7. God wants us to know that there is no gap between trumpet 6 and number 7. Why? Because he wants us to know that these events do not belong there. If these events took place after trumpet number 6, there would be a huge gap, because these are events that take a long time. 1260 days, times and a half, 42 months. These events, they take time. So God could not have said that number 2 and number 3, it happens quickly. No, it would have been a big gap. But God tells us number 3 follows number 2 quickly. God is telling us that there is no gap, and he's telling us that these 3 events are not in the right place, are not in the place where they belong. So why does he put them there? We still have that question. Why does God put them there? Well, here's the reason. Here is the reason. It says, and the 7th angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. The 7th angel is the greatest event of all time. Well, one of the greatest. You can say the death of Christ and the incarnation and the second coming of Jesus, but this is right up there with them. When the 7th angel blows his trumpet, it is the end. The kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ. So the 7th angel is one of the greatest events of all time. Now, bear that in mind and go back to chapter 10 and look at what it says in chapter 10. Look at what the angel says in chapter 10. The angel lifted up his hand to heaven, and he swore that, let me read verse 7, in the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he shall begin to sound, when he blows his trumpet, the mystery of God shall be finished, as he has declared to his servants the prophets. When this angel comes down from heaven, let me see if I have a picture of it that I can put up here, just to imprint it on our minds. Yeah, when this angel comes down from heaven with a little book in his hand, this angel marks the beginning of the last great movement. Brothers and sisters, I hope that this is imprinted on your mind. This angel marks the beginning of the last great movement of God. Do you know where this movement will end? Do you know where this movement will end? The end of this movement is the finishing of the mystery. The mystery was not finished when Jesus died on Calvary. The mystery was not finished when Pentecost came. The mystery was not finished during the 2,000 years. The mystery is finished when this angel opens the book of Daniel. When the book of Daniel is opened, it marks the beginning.
Benja, listen to Brother David.
Unmuted. Viv and Lenny. I don't know, Brother Lenny told me he doesn't know why Sister Vivia's phone is always unmuting. But you guys,
Oops, sorry.
yeah, your phone has a life of its own.
Yep.
Yeah. So I hope you get the impact of what I'm trying to say. This is not my emphasis. It's God's emphasis. God says that when the seventh angel blows his trumpet, it will be the end of God's mystery. And the angel has come down from heaven with the book of Daniel open in his hand, because this book marks the beginning of the finishing of the mystery. This is the movement that will lead to the finishing of the mystery. So this is why when we come to the time where the mystery is about to be finished, what time is that? When you come to the second to the last plague, which we call trumpet number, when you come to trumpet number 6, what is the next event? The next event is the finishing of the mystery. So God says, hold on a little bit. Hold on a little bit. Before we go to the finishing of the mystery, let me tell you how we come to the finishing of the mystery. So God, he does not go directly to trumpet number 7. He tells you of a movement. He tells you of a movement that describes the finishing of the mystery. He tells you all about the little book movement. It's not that it belongs at this place. It's that the story of what it's like the story about it, the revelation about it comes in at this moment. It comes in to help us to understand how we get to number 7. How do we get to the finishing of the mystery? If you don't have the little book open, the temple measured, and the witnesses testifying, we will never see the finishing of the mystery. So when it comes to the point where the mystery is about to be finished, God takes us back in time and he shows us what leads us to that place. All right. I didn't even remember that Brother Jimmy had his hand up. So let me take him out of his suffering. Go ahead, Brother Jimmy.
Okay, what I'm saying here, right? You see, number 6 is when God what is started, right? Which is the end of probation. Not true?
Number 6, the 6th seal, yes.
Yeah, right. So that means when the censer is cast down, the censer is cast down after the witnesses and before the 6th seal.
Yes, it has to be.
So that means you have to move it from there and put it above the 6th seal.
This is where it belongs.
No, I talk about the censer. The censer now. When the censer cast down, that means the end of probation. No more grace.
You mean put it up here?
Yeah, before that. Yeah, you must have
Yes,
to go there.
yes, I agree. In actual fact, these events are kind of like, they happen about the same time.
Yeah.
Censer cast down, God's wrath arrives, silence, and if they are coexistent events.
Yeah, and I definitely agreed exactly what you're saying, because I remember I was an Adventist for 20-something years now. And what you're saying here, I agree 100%.
All right, Brother Jimmy, thank you for the vote of confidence. All right, so this is how I explain. So if there is any, after this explanation, if there's anybody who doesn't understand what I'm trying to say, or who does not agree, I would greatly appreciate if you let me know, because I'm not really looking for, nor am I expecting conflict and argument, but I am looking for clarity. So if you don't agree, I won't have a problem. I just want to know what are your disagreements, because I want us to be able to move forward at least with an understanding that we are understanding each other and that our reasons are very clear. Let me take Sister Diane, then Brother Matt.
All right. Forgive me if you've answered this question before, but I need to know what is the mystery? Is it the Christ in you, or is it Babylon's sins being laid open?
I'm going to let the Bible answer, Sister Di. I could tell you, but I love the biblical answer, so let me just give it to you from the Bible, in the Bible's words. The best expression of it I have is in Ephesians 3 and verse 10. Oh, I'm on the wrong version of the Bible. That's why it looks different. He says, and to make all men see what is the fellowship of the mystery, which from the beginning of the world hath been hid in God, who created all things by Jesus Christ, to the intent of for this purpose, that now unto the principalities and powers in heavenly places might be known by the church the manifold wisdom of God. So, it doesn't even explain it the way I thought it did, not this verse. There's another verse that says it. Let me see if I can find that verse. I think it's in chapter
So
1.
so it is the verse that I'm asking. The mystery is Christ in you, the hope of glory.
Yes, Sister Di. But
Okay.
it's more than Christ in us.
Okay,
But I
because
want,
that is a mystery that Christ is being manifested in our flesh, right? And then
yes.
there's the mystery of Babylon. So what is being finished? Is it our complete sealing in this fullness of our being made in the Christ likeness, or what?
This is why I wanted to read it, because this is it. Having made known unto us the mystery of his will, according to his good pleasure which he hath purposed in himself. Ephesians 1, 9 and 10. That in the dispensation of the fullness of times, this is it, he might gather together in one all things in Christ, both which are in heaven and which are in earth, even in him. You see, the Christ in us in its fullness, it happened at the sealing. So that's the first step in the finishing of the mystery. But the mystery is not finished until the kingdoms of this world are overthrown. And Christ gathers together in one. God gathers together in one. All things in Christ. So it's not just it's not something just to do with planet Earth. It's something to do with the entire universe. And that is why it is so stupendous. This finishing of the mystery is more than about the salvation of humanity. It's about the restoration of the entire universe. It's the end of, we know that we have the concept that people are being judged, but what a lot of people don't understand is the concept of God and his government are being judged. And everything is not safe in the universe until God's government has been finally proven to be the greatest and the best. So the 144,000 and this final conflict will show to the universe what God's government can produce. And this will be the key for all things being restored to God. So the finishing of the mystery is more than just about the salvation of men. It's about the complete reconciliation of the entire universe back to God in its fullest sense. And that is what will happen at trumpet number 7.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Sister Di. Brother Mark, go ahead.
Okay. So your idea is that you're putting these events, the opening of the little book, the 144,000, and the witnesses of chapter 11 in between the 6th and 7th trumpet. Am I correct?
6th and 7th, 5th and 6th seal.
5th and 6th seal, right. Okay, because the picture, maybe I misunderstood it. The 7 trumpets, you kind of stuck it with an arrow there, the picture
No,
I have.
no.
After the angels are loosed and the mystery is finished.
This is where God puts them in the book of Revelation.
Oh.
This is where you find them if you read Revelation. This is a sequence.
Right. Okay, I misunderstood.
But I'm saying they don't actually belong at that spot. God puts them at that spot because he wants to give us an understanding of how we come to trumpet number 7. How do we get there? These are the events that take us to the finishing of the mystery. But in actual
Okay.
fact, these events must have happened
Yeah,
earlier
earlier.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I was going to ask. It has to happen before all those events. Because I was going to say, what are we going to do with the 1260 days if they come one after the other? The three woes. All right. Yeah, that
Exactly.
makes more. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Right. So the trumpets themselves have no gap. This is how they
Yeah,
actually happen. And after
right.
number 6, number 7 follows quickly.
Yes.
But in telling the story, God sometimes takes us backward. Now, it's already 1 hour, and we're not going to start looking at the little book this evening at all. But I want to explain how it is that Adventists came to the place where they came to that conclusion. Why do they look at them this way? Because I just hope everybody understands the position I'm trying to present and why. If you understand this, beautiful. Now, what I'm going to say is not to cause confusion. It's to bring understanding. If you will understand your position better, if you understand why did they believe what they believed, why did they believe what they believed. So that's what I want to explain now. Do we have time for 10 more minutes of concentration? Because if you don't concentrate, you might get confused. All right? So, all right, let's go with 10 more minutes of concentration. It's not difficult, but I know that when you're looking at all kinds of, you don't have the illustrations, it's kind of vague and so forth, you can get mixed up. Because I nearly confused Brother Matt a while ago by moving the stuff back and forth. But anyway, here is how it actually is laid out in Revelation. All right, here's how it's actually laid out in Revelation. Let me put back the trumpets to the way they are. Actually, if you read Revelation straight, this is how they are. Now, the question that Sister Talia asked last week is a reasonable question, even though, to some people it might seem like it was causing confusion, but it's a reasonable question. Because if you read Revelation, the 7 trumpets, like I said, this is chapter 8. This is chapter 9. You have 8, you have 9. This is 10 and 11. And this, the mystery finishes 11, the last part of 11. So you're reading in a sequence. And you take that this is how it should be read. Then, of course, when it says the little book is open, you're an Adventist and you're reading this. You take the opening of the little book as what? You take this as 1844. That's how I saw it, right? The temple measured, the judgment, they saw that as 1844. The witnesses testifying, they saw that as themselves carrying the message from that time down to the end. No. Hold on. Let me not mix up. Let me take the first two and stay where I'm on safe ground. They saw this as 1844. All right? From 1844 on, going onwards. The little book is open and the temple is measured. So what do they have to do? They have to find out now, okay, so this has to take place before, pre 1844. All right, you have to understand. So they are saying if the little book was opened in 1844 and the measuring of the temple started in 1844, and that is after trumpet number 6, then the trumpets before, they have to be before 1844. That is why they came upon the idea that these trumpets from 1 to 6 have to do with events in the past. So they had to go back and find a way to make these locusts and this mountain burning with fire and this hail and fire mingled with blood. They had to make it fit events in history. And when they went back to history, what they saw was the Muslim nations invading Europe, and the nations from the east, what they call the barbarian tribes from out of the east, China, those areas, Genghis Khan and so on, invading Europe. And so they said that is what the trumpet was about. They had to put the trumpet in the past because they could not explain what I just explained to you. They could not understand how could you put this here if it doesn't belong here. I just said it belongs over here, right? But they didn't see it that way, or they never thought of it. To them, you're reading and everything is in a sequence. So they had to find a way to make it fit, and that is why they came up with that idea that the trumpets are to go in the past. Once you can find a way to explain why is the little book here, why is the measuring of the temple here, why are the witnesses here, once you can find a way to explain it, then now you can put the trumpets in the future. Now, this is why they came to this kind of interpretation. However, they were not consistent, and I'm going to show you. Man, if you're not familiar with Revelation, no, you will be confused. But they were not consistent because they did something with these two witnesses. All right, they put the opening of the little book, and the measuring of the temple. They put that at 1844. Right. The next thing that happens is the two witnesses testifying. You know what they did? They took these two witnesses and they put them way back in the Dark Ages. That is where they were inconsistent. All of a sudden, you jump from 1844 and you've gone back to the Dark Ages. That is where they were completely inconsistent. And I'll show you why they did this. And maybe, here, I hope I'm not giving you too much in one bite. I want you to understand, but I don't want to overdo it. Sister Talia, maybe you can give us a slight break by going ahead with your point.
Thank you, Brother David. I like consistency and clarity because timelines also play a role in prophecy. So when you have Daniel speaking of prophecies such as the 70 week to the coming of Christ, those happen within a timeline. And then I'm going to flash forward to Revelation 10, when you have the speaking of Revelation 10, verse 10, really, and it says, and I took the little book, and it gives you the whole description of what that symbolism would stand for or mean. As a person, let me say, coming into the Adventist realm here, I understood that to be the fact that the book, and let me say it correctly. When John ate it, it was bitter. I mean, it was
Sweet.
it was sweet as honey, and so on and so on. You know the drill. And so, how does the Seventh-day Adventist movement fit into the parameters of your charting here within that timeline, and how you take the 1260 days that culminated, and I'm saying a lot, to the event of 1798, how you bring 538 and all the math that goes with it for that timeline to come to 1798, and it's clear that prophecy was fulfilled. And so here in Revelation, let me ask a question. So there is another 1260 days for future events, which will fall into any one of these 7 trumpets? Because the trumpets, as I know it, are for judgment, and I'll leave it at that. If you can.
Yes, thank you for the question, Sister Talia, and it's a good question. Is there a future 1260 days, 1260 years? The fact that you asked the question, I am glad, because it shows that you're you're following what is going on. And before I answer the question, I'm going to answer the question, but I'm going to show you why. If you find inconsistency in what I'm saying, then you should be consistent and find a great inconsistency in the Adventist interpretation. And I'm making that point first because I'm going to explain myself. But first of all, let me show you something. All right? Okay, all of us are familiar with this sequence. Let me show you the illustration because, okay, the angel comes down from heaven and he gives John a little book and tells him to eat it up. And, it's the book of Daniel. You can see the comparison. We're going to deal with this in more depth next week. So let me hurry through. But John is told to eat the book, eat it up, and we believe it has something to do with understanding the book of Daniel. So far, everything is perfect. We are together. Then John is given a reed and he's told to measure the temple. And we know that this is speaking about the judgment, right? You measure something, you measure the temple, it's the judgment. Then the next thing that happens is that God says, I will give power to my two witnesses. So let's go to the Bible and see where he says this. It's actually Revelation 11. And so he says, I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days clothed in sackcloth. Now, Adventists agree. Measure the temple. They say that is 1844, the beginning of the judgment. Verse 3, and I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days in sackcloth. Now, Sister Talia, this you should see as extremely inconsistent because they say verse 3 is talking about the beginning of the papal power in 538. They take verse 3 and they put it back in 538. They say that verse 1 is 1844, measure the temple. Verse 3 goes back to 1844 in the middle of the... Why do you go back to... Not 1840, go back to AD 538. Why do you go back there? And it goes on to talk about these witnesses having power to shut heaven. And they say this is talking about the French Revolution. And it says when they finish their testimony, the beast from the bottomless pit, it's talking about the French Revolution. Where does that come into this prophecy? To me, this is the greatest inconsistency. It has no place here. It has no business here. Revelation 10 shows you the angel comes down with a little book, and John is told that he is to prophesy again, and he's going to prophesy before many peoples, nations, and tongues. You switch over to chapter 11. Chapter 11 tells you measure the temple and don't measure the court. And then suddenly they jump back 1,000 something years into the past. Why? They are doing it because they don't want to accept that there is a prophecy in the future that involves 1,260 days. The question you ask, is there to be a future 1,260 days? Now, in the past...
Before, I have to interject quickly. Was there a 1,260 days numerical timeline to confirm that in the past there was the 1,260 days culminated with 1798 and the deadly wound of the papacy? Because I'm looking, and my apologies, Brother David, because I'm looking at the timeline, the historical, as well as trying to piece in the symbolism so
Sure,
that
I understand.
I can get a consistent story.
I understand. There are places in the prophecies where I believe that the 1,260 days is used to represent a day for a year. So I'm not denying this. What I am finding a problem with is the idea that it is never used to represent a literal time. That's the problem. Because in this prophecy and in other prophecies, it is very clear that it is being used to represent literal time. Now, because Adventists would not accept this, they had to put this in the past. So they had to find a way to squeeze this event into the past, even though it has nothing, it is completely out of context. It has no place here. But they had to put it that way because of the time period. So it is a time period where they put this in the past. But if we accept that there are times when the period is used and it refers to literal time, then we can understand that this event is something that takes place in the future. And that's what I'm going to demonstrate next week. But go ahead, Sister Diane.
Yeah, Brother David. There's no more prophetic time. So if there's no more, this is my opinion, there's no more prophetic time. So when we look at these numbers, because in the past, when it was prophetic time, it was a day for a year. But when we look at Daniel chapter 12, the last part of Daniel chapter 12, where it's talking about the 1260 to 1290 to 1335, and we see that that's in the future, then it has to be literal time. That's the way I see it.
And I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. The idea that there's no more prophetic time, of course, that depends a lot on probably some of the statements that were made by Ellen White. But the point is, you mentioned Daniel chapter 12. And in Daniel chapter 12, that's one of those passages where it's very difficult to say that these time periods are in the past. You know? And a few other places. So the best understanding that I have at the moment is that some of these prophecies, like in Revelation 12, where it talks about the woman going into the wilderness, you put those time periods have to do with the past. But this one in particular, we will see next week. Next week, we will see that it is clearly something that happens in the future. And so it has to be literal time. Brother Jimmy, go ahead.
Yeah, the time and a half in Daniel, I think it's chapter 12, right? I think that may coincide with the Dark Ages, right? But this time and a half, this 42 months, right? With the two witnesses up here. I believe these are literal days or literal time, because this one down here in Daniel will be prophetic time, which is day for year. But the one in Revelation, it must be in consistency with we're reading right here.
Yeah. You know that the theologians have us saying that I agree with one little caveat. They say context is king. And I would say that the only thing that can beat that is a direct revelation from God. If God gives somebody a direct revelation, then that beats everything. But other than that, the best tool for understanding the Bible is context. If you can understand the passage, the surrounding ideas and the purpose and the bigger picture, you are far a lot more likely to understand what it is being said. So in understanding the time periods, the context is most important. What I think the Adventists did was they took the word and they tried to make the context suit the time period. But the time period should suit the context. That's why they jumped back to 1798 and the French Revolution, because they needed to find a way to make the time fit in the past. Even though the prophecy itself is about the little book and the eating of the book and the prophesying, it's so clear. The angel says to John, you must prophesy again. And then God says, I will give power to my two witnesses and they shall prophesy. It's the same prophecy. It's connected, it's clear. But then they made this prophecy about something in the past. The two witnesses are in the past because they had to find a way to make the 1260 days become a historical event. So they definitely departed from the context. Sister Talia.
But one moment, brother David. But at chapter 11, which show you with Sodom and Gomorrah and where the Lord have been crucified and all these things. These are hints that show you that this is future events.
Yes, I think so too. I think so too. Next week we will look at that more closely. Sister Talia, go ahead.
No offense, Brother David. Based on what you're saying, I understand it's your understanding. My question to you then now would be, was it inspired, or is, as you're reading the Bible, you're getting these inspiration? Because from what I understand, and no, don't take me wrong, anyone, because when y'all speak about the Sister White, it becomes problematic as an Adventist, as an Adventist. She was a messenger. She was inspired. All the Seventh-day Adventists, for all its upbringing to this point, would not even be, as far as I know. And I could be wrong, because I don't come from a Seventh-day Adventist background, but rightly said, she inspired, God inspired a lot of what she understood, because I believe that. I don't know about anybody else. And I just wanted to share that. But the question to you is, what inspiration, how was you inspired to make these inferences? If, I just want to know, because now I'm listening to you, but where do you get your inspirational to suggest these things? Because at one point you are what is it? It's supposition, or you're not sure, or
Speculation.
whatever. Okay.
Sure. Thank you, Sister Talia. And you don't have to be embarrassed to say it, because I appreciate you are being straight, and at the same time you're being respectful. I don't have any objection at all, because I can fully understand that those are reasonable questions. And let me respond first to the issue of Sister White. Adventism, based on Sister White, knows everything. There's nothing more to learn. And I'm not saying you, I'm saying Adventists in general, because I was also there. I was of the opinion that everything that there is to be known, Adventists have it, because Ellen White has answered everything. I fed on her books more than anything else. Well, anyway, let me not go on. But the point is, I can at this moment give you some statements from Ellen White that are credited to Ellen White that I'm sure you won't agree with. If you challenge me, I will give them to you right now. So when you use Ellen White as an authority, you have to accept that you are doing it selectively, or else you have to accept everything that she says, one or the other. And I know there are some statements credited to her that you will not accept. I don't think you will. So you have to decide whether or not you are going to say, I'm accepting everything Ellen White says, or I'm going to accept her selectively. I hate when I hate to be hypocritical or double standard. And that's why I decided I'm not going to use Ellen White as an authority. And when I did that, I discovered that sometimes what I said would contradict things that Ellen White said. So I came to the place where I no longer view Ellen White as an authority when I'm studying the Bible. So I feel free to say things that may not necessarily agree with her. So that's why I came to that position. Now, the other question is, why do I have confidence in what I understand? And why would I put this above, say, an authority like Ellen White, or even like the theologians who study this book very deeply? Well, one of the things that my position is this, and this is why I feel safer with my position. The only thing I ever say to anybody is put what I am saying to the biblical test. I would like everybody in this room, on the internet, to do it. That's all I ever ask. I am not an authority. I'm not like the church. The church is using its authority. I'm not like Ellen White. They use Ellen White's authority. I don't fit into that category. The only basis I have for what I present is I say, put it to the Bible test. And if you don't think it makes biblical sense, you reject it. I don't have a problem. I'm not a church. I'm not a prophet. I'm a Bible student. If you ask me honestly, I believe that God has given me the responsibility of teaching. I might even go so far as to say maybe he has given me the gift. I believe he has given me that responsibility. So if he gives you a job, then he's supposed to qualify you for the job. So I believe this. In my heart, I believe it, but I'm not using that as a basis for what I believe. My basis is that what I'm presenting must make sense, and what I'm presenting must be biblical. And with all of that said, I can still be wrong. And that is why I always have the challenge out there. If you can show me from the Bible what I'm saying that is wrong, I would love to hear it. That's why I put that challenge out there, because I know I can be wrong. But I try to be careful when I study, and I try to make sure that the conclusions I come to have solid biblical basis. So that's my position, Sister Talia, right? I don't come as an authority. I come as a Bible student who is asking other Bible students, examine together, and let's see what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And that's what the Bible says we should do, study to show ourselves approved unto God. Okay, Sister Di.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a discussion on that, whether or not she is or not, but most of what is said about prophecy, she herself didn't have a whole lot of inspiration about her own words. And so most of what the church got as far as Revelation Bible prophecy came from the men in the movement, her husband and other people, Uriah Smith, that because she had to sit in and listen because she herself said she didn't understand it. She didn't get it. So then if that's the case, then we're in the last days, way past her and the pioneers, where the Spirit is going to be giving enlightenment to these scriptures, way past that time. That's what we've been told. In these last days, the Spirit is going to be teaching. So why are we denying? Doesn't mean it has to be inspiration, but when we come together collectively to study the Bible, if I put away my preconceived ideas, which means I'm willing to come to the scriptures to learn, and let the Spirit teach, whether it's David and I agree or don't agree, but we're coming together to have this understanding. We got to rely on the Spirit. And as a result, I don't have, and a lot of and just knowing that a lot of the things that were received weren't always inspired, especially if you take writings from other people and then put it in there and then say it's inspiration. That's not inspiration. And that's been proven. This is not for me, this is not a debate on whether or not you believe she's inspired or not. But that was proven with the case with Walter Ray. He didn't lose the case because he didn't prove his point. And that's the thing that a lot of Adventists don't realize. He only lost the case because at the time, there was no such thing as plagiarism as a law. But it was proven that it was done. So, and the church wants to save face and say everything was inspired, and that, well, you learn it, you learn as you go, you make mistakes, but that's not what it says in the Old Testament. It says if a prophet messes up and tells you something that's not true, then there's a problem. That's the basis. So the church said, oh no, with the mess up, oh, well, it was because she was learning. You know what I mean? So just know that we're here in these last days. We're depending on the Spirit to teach us, because that's what the prophecy said would happen in these last days. So that's how I see it.
Thank you, Sister Diane. Just before you, Sister Esther and Sister Jess, Brother Tony, I'm kind of concluding the Bible study for the evening because the time is up. So our discussion here is not really interfering with the further study. So I just want to say this quickly. I want to make this very clear. I do not object to Sister Talia's questions. Okay, I think I understand Sister Talia. Okay, I understand her. You grew up with this kind of situation and this kind of background, and what I appreciate is that you have these questions and you still come and you are being offended week after week because I am stepping away from what you have learned through Ellen White. But you are still here. This means that you're open to listen. If somebody comes here and they're going to dog me with Ellen White and be dogmatic and they will not move and they keep on harassing me with the infallibility of Ellen White, there is going to be problem. There's going to be trouble because I'm going to take a similar position and I'm going to deal with it according as how that person faces me. But Sister Talia is asking questions which are reasonable in light of the background that she's coming from. So I don't have a problem with it, you know. But just that it also gives us an opportunity to clarify where we stand on these issues. So go ahead, Sister Esther, and then Sister Jess.
I just want to say that Ellen White made the statement that we, meaning the church, are repeating the history of Israel. And I have wondered exactly how prophetic that statement is going to be. Because the Jews kept, when Jesus was here, they kept referring back to Moses, and Moses didn't do anything wrong. He didn't say anything wrong, but truth had moved on. And now today the church is referring back to Ellen White all the time. And I just hope that they don't crucify Christ again. That's my fear.
That's probably a vain hope, Sister Esther, but yeah, probably a vain hope, but you're right. Sister Jess and then Brother Ray.
Diane kind of said most of what I wanted to say, but I understand where Talia's coming from too, because I was, in the position where I thought everything that the Adventists believed was what Ellen White believed. But obviously that's not true because, like Diane was saying, the pioneers, they were Uriah and James White. They wrote more on Revelation and Daniel than Ellen White did, and they had a huge controversy about who the king of the north was. And even made it, James was really nasty to Uriah in public, and Ellen didn't say who's right or wrong. She didn't know. And she just rebuked James for the way he talked to Uriah. And so she didn't really take a position because I don't think that she had any inspiration when it comes to those deeper things. And so it's just interesting, like when people are like, well, they associate Uriah Smith's Daniel and the Revelation with Ellen White's writings, and that's just not true. So if we want to say, was Uriah Smith a prophet, then we have a different conversation. So I don't think we can bring Ellen White into this conversation about Daniel and the Revelation because she did not write that book that Adventists get their theology from. But that's all I have to say about that.
But can I jump in here with this with Jess? She had a problem. This is funny. She had a problem with Uriah on Revelation 1:8. I think it's 1:8. Revelation 1:8 says that the Almighty, Uriah Smith, put that to Jesus. And she corrected him to say it wasn't Jesus as a father, and he wouldn't change it. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Brother
didn't know
Ray,
that either.
yeah. Brother Ray, go ahead.
Yeah, Brother David, thank you. I'm just curious, David, and wondering because my heart tells me that between you, Ima, Nader, and other, brothers of the same faith that we fellowship here with, have more inspirational books than Ellen G. White, believe it or not. I mean, you guys put her like in the dust, woof, gone, because it's new revelations, it's new prophecy and things like that. So I'm amazed, amused. Actually, I'm amused, because a lot of people still go back to Adventism and spend so much time, trying to figure out what pioneers thought and whatnot, which is a good thing in a way because we get to educate ourselves, But in all reality, it's not that I'm trying to puff you guys up, but guy, I read stuff that you have written, like the good news is better than you think. Ellen White would don't even come close to that stuff. Not even close. Not even a 10% close. So this is the new covenant that Jesus is now right now using you guys to bring the last message. So like Iman, I mean, I've heard some sermons that Iman has put out there that wow, it puts people upside down. Just this morning, I had a thought, and I put it into like a little short video, about the Trinity issue. Only 3 minutes. I got over 200 views in no time and likes on it. So I believe that this is the spirit of prophecy, which is a testimony of Jesus working within this movement. And I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, Brother Ray. Well, I'm not going to comment too much on what you said. I guess everybody has its perspective, but I will agree with you on this. According to Revelation, the spirit of prophecy is not Ellen White, and it's not the writings of Ellen White. And Revelation applies the spirit of prophecy to God's people at the end of time, not to one person. And maybe that can address maybe an earlier question that was asked. What gives me or you or Imad or anybody the right to say that what we are sharing could be truer than what went before? And I think that's a good point. The spirit of prophecy is promised to God's people at the end of time, not in one person, but in many persons. So that may be our authority. Yeah, go ahead, Sister Talia, and then Jimmy. Sister Talia? Well, she seems to have frozen up.
I don't know if you could hear me.
I'm hearing you now.
Oh, I want to thank you for your patience and your loving kindness. And this is what I love about you, the fact that you're willing to hear out all the contradictions, the conundrums, and all that. And you still stay calm and patient as a father would to a child. So I do appreciate that. And let me put that out there. But I also want to make clear that I never came, and again, because I probably said this before, I didn't come into this movement through Ellen G. White, came through the Bible. My just studying and then someone introducing the Bible to me.
You're gone again, Sister Talia. Your internet giving you some trouble here, Sister Talia. We're not hearing anything at all.
By the way, David, I shared the link of the little short video that I made of the Trinity this morning.
Okay, Brother Ray.
It's in Spanish and in English both.
All right, I'll see if I can find it and take a look at it.
Poor Sister Talia is probably talking away. She don't know we're not hearing her.
All right, I'm going to let Brother Jimmy go ahead because something went wrong with her thing.
Yes. With Daniel, with the 70 weeks prophecy, the Protestant churches take the last week and put it way in the future. And Adventists crucify them for it. I know that. I'm an Adventist. I know. Right? Now, we taking this thing, this two witness, and put it way back in the past. I don't see, I don't, so why you crucifying these people for that, and now you're doing the same thing?
Yeah, it's similar, Brother Jimmy. I agree.
Yeah, but before you go, I make put a smile on your face. The dog, did you and that dog ever get friends?
Dog?
Yeah, the dog that you say, your other try to make, try to friendly him, and it's like, you throw frisbee with him, and then you play a little, and then he run away again and start to growl.
It never really became my friend until we lost it, but never really came to trust. If I could have turned into a dog, it wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah, I was listening to someone this morning. It's
All
very
right, Brother
interesting.
Jim.
You see,
Yeah.
sometimes we have to go back and listen. Sometimes these sermons that you have given to us in the past, because it really, it opened your eyes more and more. Is it like
Praise the
this
Lord.
now? Is it like this discussion here? I will look over it again, and I will learn something more from it by seeing it again. Repetition helps.
I agree, Brother Jimmy. I agree. Praise the Lord. Sister Lorena, and then Brother Tony.
Hi, everyone, again. This is not directly related to what you were sharing, and I think it makes sense what you were sharing. It's logical. But can we still consider ourselves Seventh-day Adventist in light of the fact that we no longer prescribe to what they believe? I mean, do they have a monopoly on that whole thing? I don't know. Okay, because can they kick us out of God's church? In other words, I'm like asking.
Um, Different people have different opinions, Sister Lorena. Because the Adventist Church is recognized as a Trinity and believing church, I don't want to be identified in a way that connects me to that church. So I would rather not use the name. But in truth, there is no group, there's no denominational group on earth that my beliefs are closer to than to Adventists. To be honest, there are two things about Adventism that I find extremely uncomfortable in terms of associating with it. One of them is the Trinity, and the other one is the legalism. Those are the two things, and because of that, I don't want to be confused as believing those things. But there's so much that I can't throw away. Like, for example, there's a pre-Advent judgment. There's an end-time day of atonement. The whole great controversy perspective, even though some elements of it I obviously disagree with, but the whole idea that there's a conflict that started in heaven and that is the framework for what is going on earth, those are things that I completely agree with. And so because of it, I am in the Adventist environment, even though I am reluctant to identify myself as one. And there are different people here who have different approaches. Some are straight out. Some would straight out say I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. Some would say I want nothing to do with that. And so because we are a loose fellowship, we're not a formal organization, everything is good wherever anybody wants to be.
Okay. You did have a sermon. It's called The Omega of Deadly Heresy, right? Where you talked about how the church changed.
Yes.
Now, could we be still a part of the original church?
I mean, what does it mean to belong to that original church? To just say that I belong?
No, it was a movement that God inspired, that God is the one who, I believe, he's the one who created that movement.
there is equal confusion because there are some people. Let me be specific. There is the former Pioneer Health and Missions, which now call themselves the Seventh Day Church of Revelation. They claim to be the inheritors of the pioneer movement. There's Alan Stump's group. All of them claim to be rebuilding on the pioneer movement. Do you know why? They will have nothing to do with somebody like me or maybe like those of us in this room, because they are completely, I'm going to use the word enslaved because it's as bad as that. They are enslaved to the statements of Ellen White, and they are enslaved to legalism. So if I identify myself in that way, I also don't want to be connected to those groups. I don't want people to think that my understanding is their understanding. So the label itself is troublesome, but I will happily embrace the truths that I believe in, and I think that is, if we are starting an organization, then it's another problem. We have to find a name and we have to find a way to identify ourselves. But the way we are today, I think each person can just choose who he wants to be.
Yeah. Amen. Thank you.
Okay, Sister Lorena. Brother Tony, then Brother Cliff, and I think Sister Talia is back after that.
You can let Sister Talia go first if you want to, since she was already speaking. I'll go after her.
All right, Sister Talia, Brother Tony says.
Praise the Lord. Thank you, Brother Tony. So my last thought, I don't know what I was able to say that everyone heard. I didn't come in by Ellen G. White's writing. I came in by the Bible. And the only reason I even referred to Ellen G. White, I didn't know there was going to be a hoopla about it, but nevertheless, is because when I read the Bible, it spoke of what the criterias were for a prophet or even a prophetess or a messenger, that they would share God's word. That's not to say that they're not infallible, because I saw some comments with regards to she's not infallible, but she did have points of reference to the inspiration of the Bible. And she did speak about your Bible being a sole authority. And so that's how my mind works. The Bible is my authority. And she says to then go to that second. And anyway, I just want to add that what was said was that the only reason we even have those books is because many people could not understand the Bible itself, so that it expounded or explained a little bit clearer what needed to be understood through the King James Bible. So I don't know about all the rest of the information, but that's not the way my mind works. My Bible is my sole authority, so that everyone is crystal clear. But if I speak on something with regards to Ellen G. White, it's not because she wrote this and she wrote that, because I know she didn't write Daniel and so on. And because I read many of her books as well. I'm not an authority on it. And I just want to say that. But I want to say and become the authority of knowing my Bible first.
All right, Sister Talia, that's good to know. That's good to know. There's a lot of good in Ellen White's writings, and the real problem with Ellen White's writings is when people think that she's infallible and when they treat her like she's infallible. That's the real problem. If it were not for that, we could happily talk about her all day. But I know that most people who talk about her a lot, they think that she's infallible, and they are going to get very upset if you dare to contradict her. So it's glad to know where you stand. We appreciate that. Brother Tony. You're muted, Brother Tony.
Yeah, just right quick. Just something jumped out at me today. We always talk about the day of God's wrath is coming and so on and so on. But when we read in Revelation 16, it also says it's the wrath of the Lamb. And we never talk about it's Jesus' wrath also.
Yeah, that's because Jesus has ended his ministry, his ministration no more.
Yeah.
So it's his wrath as well. Thank you. That's an interesting point I never saw.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of jumped out at me that, it talks about, and from the wrath of the Lamb. So it's really both of their wraths. It's the Father and the Son.
Thanks, Brother Tony. Brother Cliff.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Okay, so last night there was a testimony from a lady, and from a sister, and I don't, I don't know if if she came on, she's on here this afternoon, but there was a testimony where where she got all excited with Adventist friend, and the Adventist friend was shocked, and she looked at her all, as if cross-eyed, as if she's weird and she's being all kind of stuff, and I don't know if she's on here hearing what I'm saying. I mean, she could expound on that a little bit. The reason I'm bringing it up now is that we're talking about that and talking to people. And she went on to also answer the question that you had for the night. She didn't give you an opportunity to respond to that. I would like you to respond to that today. What do you do? If in excitement you tell people the truth, and then they're looking at you cross-eyed, and they're using the power of, well, this is established facts, and this is established church, and this is what the establishment believed, and they're making you look all small and bent out of shape. I mean, people like you could defend yourself and let them feel small in a heartbeat because of what you could tell them to make them feel small. But people like us, you know, like the sister, we'll feel sheepish and feel as if we are, oh my goodness, and we want to, we wish the ground could open and swallow us up, or we could go in the corner and shrivel away, that kind of stuff. So what do you say to people like us who, just are excited about something, about the truth, and the people who have this, who are the establishments, and people who believe in the established doctrine of whatever, they look at you cross-eyed and look at you as if you are nothing, and you're a heretic, and you're this or that. How do you respond to that lady last night?
Oh, yeah, actually, that's my niece, Dario. Actually, I liked. There's something in me that likes the way she dealt with the situation, because there is my experience over the years. I'm going to tell you something. I tried to get friendly with people and not let them know who I am, and try to get into their friendship before they find out who I am. And the times when I've tried to approach people that way, I've been embarrassed, because at some point they would find out who I was, and they would look upon me as a deceiver, and they would treat me like a pariah. It happened one time, in the innocence of my heart. I gave a lady, back in the early days, I gave her a copy of The Great Controversy, but it was one of those condensed versions, and she was so happy, she was so effusive about meeting me and so forth. The next time I went back to that location, I think it was a church. We met at a church. Look here, she treated me like dirt. Somebody told her that this book was parts were taken out of it, and they told her apparently that I was some kind of offshoot. And I made up my mind that anytime I meet an Adventist, I'm going to tell them straight up just what Dario told the lady. I'm an offshoot. If that makes them treat me like somebody with a disease, that is fine. I hate when people think that I'm trying to deceive them. I hate when people think I'm being hypocritical. To me, it's the worst thing. So I like to know from the beginning. I like people to know this is what I am, and this is where I stand. If you can take me like this, then we can proceed and we can begin to discuss. If this makes you treat me as an enemy from the beginning, fine. That tells me your spirit. I'm okay with that too. We just avoid one another. So I liked that approach, Brother Cliff. It's different when I remember when Brother Peter came to my home. Brother Peter might be in the room, but he came to work on a machine, a printing machine that I had. And when he got there, he saw, of all things, he saw all the Ellen White books on the shelf, and he worked for a little bit. Then he said to me, "Are you an Adventist?" And at first I said yes, and then I recalibrated, and I said, "Well, actually, I'm an offshoot. People will say I'm not actually an Adventist. They'll call me an offshoot." So he digested that a little, and he continued working. Then he said, "Why would people call you an offshoot?" and I explained that I don't accept the Adventist perspective on God, and I don't believe in the Trinity. And he was interested. He said, "Why not?" And I started to explain, and he said, "Do you have any literature on it?" And of course, I was warming to my explanation. I found what books I could, and I gave him, and he took them and left. And a few days later, he called me. He said, "God sent me to your house. I didn't come. I came there to repair a machine, but I was sent by God." And he was so overjoyed at what had happened. So sometimes you meet people like that, and then sometimes you meet those church people who all they are there for is to make sure that you're towing the line with your church doctrines, and if you're not, you become public enemy number one. So I think brother Cliff, that to just be straight and tell them the truth is the best way for all concerned.
So in other words, tell the truth, feel small, feel as if you want the earth to swallow you up, but feel proud that you're being made feeling small. Don't in other words, internally be proud of what you did and what you said, even though they are making you feel as if you're the bad person, you're the outcast, you're whatever. But feel good about being that outcast. That's what you're saying.
Yes, if I'm labeled as a teacher of false doctrine, I'm labeled as an outcast, I am perfect. But if you label me as a deceiver, and I did try to mislead you, that's when I really feel bad, because I feel like there's some truth in what they are saying.
Okay. I see. I mean, I could see myself in that realm, and I have to, I really assess my life where that is concerned, because I do still subscribe to some things Adventists, and I could be considered a deceiver in that respect. So I need to reassess some of the things that I do. Thank you very much for that.
All right, Brother Cliff. And I could tell you the same Peter. He went back to the church that he came from, and then after a while he discovered there was a brother there who believed. He was trying to witness to a brother there about the truth about God. And the brother said, "I believed that for several years." And that brother is a brother that I know well as well. And I didn't even know he was at the same church as this Peter. And then Peter said, "You knew? You have known all these years, and yet you never told me?" They're in the same church, and they're there 3, 4, 5 years together, and Peter doesn't know that this brother is non-Trinitarian. But shortly after Peter got the truth, he was made persona non grata. The whole church turned against him because he was so vocal in sharing it. This other brother was in good graces with everybody else because he never tried to share it, never told it to anybody. So I mean, the different approaches are interesting, and sometimes being upfront and straight, you are able to reach honest people. Anyway, Sister Di, and then Brother Tony, and then maybe we really have to close off for this evening.
I was thinking, when I visited the local churches here, which I hadn't done when I first moved here, and I've been here 5 years. So I said, let me go and see, and so when I went, when they see me, they perceive that I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. You know what I mean? So I let them know to start with that I'm not, so that they don't be Sister Diane this, Sister Dandridge. I just let them know up front that I'm not. And they said, "Oh, really? Okay. What church you go to?" I said, "I don't belong to any earthly denomination." They said, "Oh, really? You don't go to church?" I don't. I said, "I belong to," and God gave me this, "I belong to the Church of the Firstborn in Heaven." And they said, "Oh, really?" So while we're having Sabbath school, I'm participating with coming to them with the Bible, because they like to do all that talking in the Sabbath school. This one has this opinion and stuff, and I was trying to bring them to the scripture, into the lesson. So when I went back, and it wasn't consistent when I would go, and they said, "Oh, now what church did you say you go to again?" And I said, I don't. And they said, "Oh," and the other lady says, "Oh, and she knows her Bible so well." I thought that was so amazing. that because I'm not associated, they can't even perceive you being a Christian without association to some denomination, you know. But I just want to make that clear because, like I said, once I walk in and they end up perceiving that I'm a Seventh Day Adventist, you know what I mean? And I don't want to deceive them that I am. I don't even say that I was, you know what I mean? I don't even participate in that. When they found out, I said, I learned the health message from Adventists for sure, you know what I mean? I let them know that different things that I learned, but I don't even um, associate or connect myself to it. It's just me.
Yeah, best to be straight. Brother Tony, go ahead.
Okay, right quick. Um, well, first, I have to agree with Sister Talia. Thank you for being so patient and loving kindness. I pray that the Lord will continue to give us all patience and love for one another. And with that said, someone asked me about 1 John 5:20. Break that down right quick for me, if you can, please.
Okay, let me just read it quick, Brother Tony.
Because it has some mixed sayings in there. It's it says at the end that this is the true God, Jesus Christ, something like that. So
And we know that the Son of God is come and has given us an understanding that we may know him that is true. And we are in him that is true, even in his Son Jesus Christ. This is the true God and eternal life. I'm going to share the screen so we can all look at the Bible together. I know that we're just on the finishing touches here, but let me just do this quickly, Brother Tony. And okay, see what it says. Let's take it point by point. We know that the Son of God has come and has given us an understanding. What's the purpose of this understanding? So that we may know him that is true. Who is him that is true? Who
Father,
did the Father? Jesus came to
God.
make us know the Father. It goes on to say, we are in him that is true, that is the Father. Now, the word even is added by the translators. So what this is really saying, if you take out that word, we are in him that is the Father, which is true, by being in his Son Jesus Christ. This is a true God and eternal life. Who is the true God and eternal life? The one that is true, the one that
Father,
the Son came to make us know. So if the translator is a Trinitarian translator, it's slanted in a way that you can have this slight bias towards thinking Jesus is a true God. But the whole point of the verse is that the Son of God came to make us know the true God. And through that Son of God, we come to know the one that is true, and we are in that God by being in his Son Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Yeah.
Brother, you can break it down, man. I tell you. Thank you
Praise,
so much, man.
but Brother David, when we say context is king, when
yes.
you read the context of all of John 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, especially if you read 5, the context is clear. But if you read that out of context, you would think it's talking about Jesus, but it can't because it's talking about two people. And the context of chapter 5 is so clear. It's talking about the Father and the Son and giving, you know? So that's another thing. Always keep context in view.
Right, Sister Talia. All right, nobody wants to go home this evening. Sister Talia will have the absolute last word.
Okay, thank you, Brother David. No, there was a key question asked about, well, what do you say when you're speaking to either first day of the week believers or even Seventh Day Adventists? Um, because I will tell you, I'm not part of corporate. They don't even want me no more because I've had to tell some people, to get out the business, and I shared that before. But I say, and I want your help in helping me to know how to say it because I'm very direct, and some people can't, stand that about me. And that's all well and good, to each his own. That I am a Bible believing Christian, but that I'm also a Seventh-day Adventist because Christ went to church on the seventh day of the week, because a lot of them, they don't understand the difference between why the first day of the week is not the true seventh-day Sabbath of worship. And so that takes you back into conversations about history and so on, and whatever else that is needed via the Bible to explain. But I am a Seventh-day Adventist because the word Adventist means the second coming, the imminent return of Christ Jesus. And I will ask you, will he come on the first day of the week? And nobody knows, because we don't know, and I'm not saying that I know it as well. But in my opinion, he would probably have to come back, or would, or should, and I'll speak to the Lord about that, on the seventh-day Sabbath, because that's when his people will be, well, maybe, depending on how events go, will happen. And I just wanted to ask that because that's what I say. I'm a Bible believing Christian. And if anything, I'm still a Seventh-day Adventist because I'm an Adventist waiting for the soon coming return of Christ. And I worship on the seventh day and not the first day of the week.
Yeah, I'll say the last word. Sister Talia, whatever each of us wants to say, as long as it is not a lie, as long as it is a truth, it should be fine.
Amen.
The thing is that I don't feel the need to say I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, because then I'm trying to explain my connection to the denomination. So I'm trying to explain that I am in harmony with that denomination. I am a part of it, though I'm not identifying with it. In other words, you are immediately making a connection to Seventh-day Adventism when you use a name. So I can understand why maybe in a certain setting you might want to say this, and that is fine. But there are some places where I wouldn't feel the need to add that, So it depends on each person and the setting that you find yourself in.
Thank you. That helps.
All right, Sister Talia. So we're going to close off here for this evening. Beloved, you have really drained the last drop from the cup, but it was good. It was good. It was good. Not you. I mean everybody. We have been in it together. So let's give our Father thanks, and then we can close off until next week.